for making it out. Inshallah, is going to be another part of the Startup Fundamentals series. And this is one important part given by Brother Adil Daudi, part of Adil Daudi, or Daudi
Being
and
Kroll.
Kroll,
Yeah.
right? I have issues saying that word. But mashallah, he's a very knowledgeable person and active part of member of the community as well. So inshallah, without further ado, I'll leave it up to him, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. All right, assalamu alaikum. A quick introduction, and I usually hate giving intros about myself, but alhamdulillah, I've been practicing now for nearly 19 years, 18 or 19 years, and been with the same firm. I was clerking for when I started my legal career, I was clerking for the partner at the time. He hired me, and now we've become business partners, and now I've been with him for 20 years now, working with him. So alhamdulillah, we have an office in Lansing. We've got 8 attorneys with us, and so we each kind of do separate areas. So we're a full service firm in the sense that each of our associates and our partners, we've got a specific area that we focus on, where estate planning, family law, litigation, construction law, and then I focus more on the transactional business side. So my focus, and pretty much all I do, is work with business owners from the startup phase to their succession. We'll talk a little bit about that, inshallah, and everything in between, working with them through their growth strategies, risk strategies, issues that they come up with throughout, contracts, and so on. We work very closely with a lot of them, and hey, assalamu alaikum. Were you walking by, or were you supposed to come in here?
I was supposed to come in. I'm just super late.
Okay. You're walking as if, oh, I think they saw me, I should walk in.
I was going to the back door and come in.
Okay. Alhamdulillah. So yeah, so that's kind of the focus of what I do. We've done talks like this quite frequently. You guys familiar with Schoolcraft College? I used to teach there for about 4 years on the legal startup to a lot of the people there, which wouldn't call them students because they're also people coming in as startups and entrepreneurs. So we did that for some time. But for today, inshallah, I know we're here for legal business formations and a conversation on, really I want to make it about the basics of starting up a business. I don't know where everyone might be at in their entrepreneurial stage of life, but I think the foundation is the same for everybody. And I want to kind of focus and make sure that we all have a good, solid foundation with that. I didn't do any PowerPoint, but I did give a handout. I kind of like to keep it more informal, engaged, and conversational if we can, inshallah. But, to kind of start is talking about the formation itself. So we want to get into a few things. I'm going to talk about formations. Can I walk around, or do I have to stand here because of the camera? Oh, it'll follow me? Okay. So it starts with the formation of your structure of the company itself. Okay. Then we're going to get into talking about some of the documents that go into that, your partnerships if you have one, and the emphasis on the agreements that comes with that. We'll get into, I'm not an accountant, obviously, but talk a little bit about the differences of the corporations, C Corp and an S Corp, enough to kind of give you some idea, but then obviously always defer to the accountants on that. We'll get into contracts a little bit, and then IP, especially for any tech startups, and all the IP part of it is always key. And then we'll get into some common mistakes that people make. Anywhere along the line I can give examples, real life examples, I'll do that as well. Can I just actually go around and just ask people their name and just a little bit about what you guys are interested in and what it is that you guys are here for, to make sure that I'm not just boring you with what I think you might want to hear? So are you actually here to listen, or are you here to listen? I know, because I know you're also part of Medina Labs, so I want to make sure you're okay. You're not here just fill the room.
No.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Alright, so my name is Hassan Sawaigo. I haven't started for tech, so I'm more interested in like the IP part of it and how you can shape your contracts to like just be protected on the IP part. So that's kind of my focus on this topic.
Okay.
interested in your talk because I need to say that like the I like that topic here because like there is something about the article of organization
Mhm.
plus the taxation.
Mhm.
There is also the operating agreement.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I have some like question for you about the three entity, how we connect the
Okay,
three of them.
inshallah. Inshallah.
My name is Haidar. I have an existing business in Canton and just looking to learn more about, like, never heard information from a lawyer before that deals with
Okay.
business, so more like learning about the legal side of things.
Inshallah. Okay.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum
My name
assalam.
is Rizwan Atiki. I'm a network engineer. I work for AT&T and I've been with them for 20 plus years. And I just wanted to get an idea of how to start up a business because that may be something I might look into in the future. I'm getting close to retiring from there, from my company, and just want to get involved in other things.
And other things? Okay. Brother in the back.
I have project management background. I work for a software company. I also have some previous business exposure. I have had multiple units that I used to run brick and mortar. And they just came to see what you're talking about. And
General
talk
information.
about the topics.
Okay. Perfect. Ibrahim.
Assalamualaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
My name is Ibrahim. I'm working on a startup. We're in the building stage. I have my formation. I formed the company out in Delaware. I have my EIN. I have a bank account. I have all that stuff. But I'm finalizing an operating agreement, and I'm curious to learn about that operating agreement and also learn a little bit more about IP.
You don't.
Really curious, why Delaware?
Protection.
Just
Because they teach it at law school. So
I was gonna touch on that a little bit. That was part of the
Was it
conversation.
Taxes?
the courts over there are favorable towards businesses if you get sued by clients.
So, I mean, Maya will just bring it up now, right? That's the misconception people have that it's for taxes. It's really only for the courts are just a little bit more favorable. But there's other reasons too that people may consider doing that.
I see. Is it like specific for any specific industry or is it just in general?
No, well,
What industry are you in?
Ibrahim, you come up, man.
I was like, sorry, this is.
No, you're good. You're good. Alhamdulillah. No, so Delaware, it's not for specific businesses, not for every industry. The general thought, so just for everyone, right, that when people are talking about where to register your business, what state, a lot of times the Delaware is brought up, Nevada's brought up, outside of just Michigan. So those are areas, especially Delaware, if you're in the tech startup and you're looking for investors, right? And you're trying to grow in that sense because investors, because of the favorability that the courts in Delaware have for businesses, they're far more, the judges are known to be far more knowledgeable. The laws are a little bit more lenient for the businesses. So for investors, they prefer that. Now, if you're just starting up a regular business, like a coffee shop here in Dearborn, you're not going to go register because you still have to then register here. There's something called a foreign LLC, which I can get into all of that as well. So depending on where you're actually doing business, you have to still be registered in the state you're doing business in. So if you are registered in Delaware, but I have a store here in Michigan, I still have to be registered in Michigan.
As part of like the LARA
Yeah.
registration.
Yeah, it would be as a foreign entity.
It's like every state has that.
Yeah, so whatever state you do business in,
They're gonna force you to sign.
you have to because you pay the taxes in that state too, right? And then you're considered a foreign. Your primary would be Delaware, but we're kind of so we'll get into
Is it because like people they could open the business virtual like
No, no, it's not because people open business. Oh, are you saying if people open business, a virtual business?
I mean like my friend he's in Dubai and he told me he will open the business in Delaware because they allow to virtual.
No, that's the thing. There's a lot of misconceptions of why people want to open in Delaware. But most businesses, if you're in Michigan, it would just make most sense to do Michigan depending on where you are. So if you're a startup that's looking to,
He has a truck transportation, so it is not
they're,
connected to
they're,
one
they're,
state.
yeah, even that being in Delaware wouldn't necessarily give them any extra advantage. So,
Are they going to talk about their startups already?
yeah, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, just to get back in the intro part.
Yeah, sorry. Muaz, I'm aside from being ML, I also have my own startups and businesses. Yeah, so all in Michigan. I didn't know about that whole Delaware thing, but that's interesting. I'll look into it, inshallah. But I'm in the cybersecurity space,
Okay.
and I'm trying to figure out where I went wrong with my business registration for the banks to reject me. So I don't know. They I went somewhere wrong. I used Busy, the online
I don't
thing.
know. Okay.
Yeah, it's an online thing. They do everything for you. You pay like a one-time fee sort of thing.
Yeah.
You're
And
probably familiar with it.
Busy, no.
Busy, no?
No.
Like Legal
Busy's-
Zoom. Yeah.
I've heard of LegalZoom, yeah,
Well, Busy is like maybe the newer one or something.
probably.
Yeah, they used to be. They used to. They renamed. They used to
Okay.
be very known, but they start from like they do all of your like
Yeah,
corporation
yeah.
articles,
Familiar with that,
EIN number
yeah.
and stuff like that. And then I try to submit the documents to Chase, and they're like, no, sorry, I don't know.
Without any reason?
They're like, yeah, the documents are not accepted because of the there's the individual. There's another person, the form.
The resident agent?
Yes, that person.
The resident agent? Yeah.
So I didn't have, although I did have information and documents to prove where he is because they give you a resident agent.
Yeah, that might just be a bank thing. I mean, people have resident agents as companies all the time and they don't have any issues.
Yeah,
I don't know
so-
why they're even looking at the resident agents. They're relevant to them.
Yeah, so they declined that anyways. So I'm trying to figure out like,
Yeah,
what's
okay.
happening.
Inshallah.
Yeah, I'm Ali Dalu, part of the Medina Lab management here. As well, I have a small company called Adil Labs. It's IT services. I'm just actually to know more about the service agreements. So I have a lot of issues that happened the last couple of years, and I wanna maybe find a way maybe to protect me and protect my business
Inshallah.
for the service agreement.
Okay. Sister?
Salam, I'm Heba, and I have an idea from Hassan that everybody wants in my circle, and I haven't given it to them, but I would cite him if I did.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know, thank you.
All right.
In high demand.
All right. Alhamdulillah.
All the way
Alhamdulillah.
up to Michigan Department of Education.
Brother, what is the resident agent? Like you just
Yeah, so we'll get into all that. So inshallah. Okay. So well, I think we'll get to number 2, choosing the right entity, which kind of goes, and then it falls into the setup of your entity, right? There's 4 ways you can create your company, right, or a company. You got what's called a sole proprietorship, right? Everyone heard of that? Okay. Sole proprietorship is really just you as an individual. There's no structure. There's no formal legal formation to it. You don't have to register it anywhere. You just start something and you just do it off of your name. If you die, the business also dies with you. So, I always say there should be 0 reason anybody ever does anything as a sole proprietor. There's absolutely no benefit to it at all. And you also expose yourself to, in terms of liability, to everything that you have, right? So anything personal that you have is all exposed in liability. Second one is partnership, that it's you and another individual. And I think the kind of the legal definition is that 2 people coming together with the intention of making a profit is what's considered a partnership. So even that, you can have 2 people that just form and say, hey, let's start something, and you guys don't really need to formalize it with the state, and just have an agreement between the 2 of you, and you've got a partnership. Again, probably not something I would ever advise that you, yes?
Is this a memorandum of understanding?
No, MOUs are a little different, but you would commemorate an MOU into a partnership agreement, if you were to go that route. MOUs have a different context overall.
Can
But
you legally hold someone on MOU though? No, right? An assigned MOU.
It depends. If the language in the MOU says it's non-binding, then no. But sometimes they could have the language that is binding. So that word would make the difference in that question.
What is binding? You know, Hassan and I are collaborating already.
So, Assalamu alaikum. You guys are in the right room, right? Okay. Can I take a quick 1 minute? We just did an intro of everyone, so I'm gonna put you on the spot. Yeah, just quick, like 10 seconds. Name and if you guys have a business or what do you wanna?
Zia Muhammad. I work at Ford.
Okay.
Liability, and currently looking for opportunities in businesses.
Okay.
So that's
You as well?
no, my name is brothers, but my name is Fasi Muhammad. I work for Synopsys as a technical sales specialist for them.
Okay.
And but yeah, I've run a couple of businesses and looking to understand how to set it up properly.
Okay. And brother, I know you just came.
Yeah, my name is Yusuf. I also work for Ford. Background in software engineering, cybersecurity, and don't have a business yet.
But interested.
I have an idea that I've been working on for the last week almost.
Okay.
10 days.
It's actually,
So
I've been seeing a lot of people from Ford who are looking to get out and start their own something. It's especially now.
They have a lot of free time, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, I've been hearing and seeing a lot of that. Okay, so so brother, we just kind of just got into just starting really about the different formation. Oh, let me get you guys so you guys can kind of follow along. Okay, jazakallah. So we talked about this just quickly on sole proprietor partnership. All right, so you don't do sole proprietor, you don't do partnerships. Where do we get to? We get to LLCs and we get to corporations. All right. Now, up until I don't know mid-90s, corporations were the most common way to structure any entity. Right. It was always LLCs weren't that common until just very recently, really, maybe 15, 20 years ago. There is and the question I get often is, should I set up a corporation or should I set up an LLC? There's a huge difference between the two. Are you guys familiar? Okay, all right. Corporations, like any corporation, and you'll know, when you see these companies as INC at the end, incorporated, is what you might have. There are very specific requirements with every corporation there is. Okay, so first off, why do you want to incorporate or set up an LLC? What's the main reason people want to set up some structure? Actually, you can't answer, dude. You go to law school, man. What's the main reason? He just answered it, but for protection, right? So let me start with that, actually. So the main reason you set up any entity is to protect what? What are you protecting? Protecting from? Your personal assets. Okay. So what does that mean? Assalamu alaikum. Sorry, brother. Yeah. So when we say protecting, and we're talking about protecting our personal liability, what does that mean, right? So let's what that means is, and keep in mind, by default, when you set up a corporation or you set up an LLC, by default you have protection. Okay. If I set up any of those companies, I'm protected. But how am I protected and why am I protected? Now, you have the default. The part that I'm going to address as well, inshallah, is how do you maintain the default? A lot of people fail to maintain it. It doesn't matter if you have a company. If you're ever getting sued, the lawyer will always, especially for smaller businesses, add you personally to the lawsuit, right? And then the question becomes, I have a company, why am I being sued personally? They got to go after my company only. Then it's becoming a conversation of, all right, let's talk about your company, this company that you have. And we'll talk about what that means. So my chicken scratch notes, I'm just going to write maintenance or maintaining. Now, how do you protect your personal assets when you form a business? When you start a company, and let's just say you've got a company you're starting. Okay, now with this, what do you need for your company to start it? What do you guys, usually you need what? Sorry?
Address.
No, well you do, but what?
Name.
Money, right? You need money, right? You need capital, right, to fund your business, right? You need to. So when we're talking about protection, you're talking about really protecting your assets that you have personally. So if John, I'm going to use a Gora name. If John has his own bank account and he's got $100,000 in this account, okay? Now he puts in his company, he opens up a bank account and he puts $10,000 into it, okay? That means he's contributed $10,000 into his business, right? Now, let's say that he is now getting sued, okay? And this 10,000, 3 years later in the bank account is now 200,000, okay? And now the company gets sued. And in my example, the company will always lose, right? So the company loses. And let's say the judgment is 150,000, right? So he pays 150,000 from here, right? How much money did John lose? It's not supposed to be a math problem, but kind of is. How much money did John lose?
Technically zero.
He didn't lose anything?
10,000. He lost the 10,000. The problem that happens when we're in small businesses is that we think I lost 150,000. No, the company lost X amount. You only lost what you put in. That's how your liability is limited. When we talk about LLCs, limited liability company, right? This 100,000, which whatever became 90, let's say, this hasn't been touched, right? It's the company that got sued, the company that lost money, and that's it. So when we're talking about how do I protect, the reason you do these entities is because you're trying to protect your personal assets, right? This is your bank account, you got your house, you got your cars, you got your investments, right? Then you get the question, oh, what if I transfer everything to my wife's name and, all that stuff. So this is all being protected because you've got the company. Okay, that's the default rule, is how this would work. I'm going to get into the formations, but I want to have this background understanding of how and why you're protected.
I have a question.
Yes.
I was under the impression that people should start a business to have passive income for their expenses so that you're an employee, your kids are an employee, and literally on vacation, but they think you're going on a work business travel. It's a tax cover.
So you started your question by saying that that's the reason to start the business. I wouldn't say that's the reason. That's a benefit.
On social media.
Yeah.
Nobody's talking
So
about getting sued, but they are talking about how to make your vacation.
those are financial strategies and tax strategies. Yeah. So it wouldn't be the reason. It would be a reason, I would say. But when people are looking to start, their main thing is, I want to protect what I've got. So let's form. And those are just tax strategies and financial strategies that benefit on why you should also have it. So you're not wrong. It's one of the other reasons you would do it too. But usually people's concerns is they're not thinking that far ahead with their businesses. It's more of, I want to make sure I'm protected. That's always the question. I need to do this because I want to protect myself. I need to draft a contract because I want to protect myself. Make sure I'm starting this and protect myself. It's always protect.
And if I don't have 200K in my company, are they going to after my 90K in my business?
They shouldn't. They shouldn't. Now, can they? They could, and that's where I'll get into the maintenance part in a second. Because this is the default, right? Okay. So then, let's kind of get back to, so that's your baseline understanding of how your liability is, you're limiting and protecting yourself, right? Okay. So now let's get into the corporations and LLCs. So the primary, few differences. LLCs are far less formalized than corporations, okay? In a corporation, there are actual requirements that every corporation is required to hold, okay? So when you have a corporation, you are required to have board of directors, okay? You're required to have officers. You're required to have bylaws. You're required to have meetings. Meetings of who? The board, BODs, and the officers. Oh, sorry, not the officers. Cross that, shareholders. Okay, now, just quick terminology here. A corporation owners are called what? Shareholders. Okay, those are shareholders. All right. Now, the way it works is that the shareholders appoint the board, and the board appoints the officers. This requirement and this structure is no different for anybody here that starts a corporation, or Apple, or Google, or Microsoft. The requirement is the exact same. It's shareholders, board of directors, officers. The difference ends up being, usually here, you're the only shareholder, right? Or maybe two of you, right? Generally, we're not talking about investors and all that yet. So, but this is a state requirement. There's statutes based off of this that you're required to have this. Okay, the Michigan Corporation Act, that this is all part of. Now, the problem is 95% of the businesses that are or were corporations, they don't do any of this. They don't follow it, okay? Usually because if I'm the only owner, they're thinking it's just me, what's the big deal, right? This is one of the things, though, that needs to be clearly understood. You are here, your company is here. You are not the same, like at all. You are here, your company is here. What people do is they move that line and they merge the two worlds, and that can cause problems. Okay, so I'm going to talk about LLCs in a second, and I'm going to get into why these cause problems. Okay, but with corporations, this is the requirement, and this is pretty much unanimous across the country, that every corporation has these requirements. This is the same for profit, and it's the same for nonprofit. Okay, now with the nonprofit, you don't have shareholders, there's no owners. That's the other thing, just as an FYI. People, for some reason, think as a nonprofit, you're the owner of a nonprofit. Nobody owns a nonprofit. Okay, so there's no ownership to that. So it's just, that's it. You're just a board of the nonprofit. Okay, you might have some control, but in for-profit and nonprofit, this is, you take out the shareholder, everything else is the same. You got board of directors and you got
the board in a nonprofit?
So the founders would start, the incorporators, and then the bylaws for that would then dictate how the future of the organization will go. So there's always the incorporators or the founders, and then we have conversations with them. We say, right, how do you want this to now go moving forward? And then if it's membership based or whatever, then you can have the members decide and so on. Kind of like, I guess, here at MCWS, similar. Does this make sense right now? The corporation part. Okay. Is there, brother? Do we have a charger for this? It went from 35 to 20.
Yeah, I know. Can a corporation own an LLC?
Yes. Jazakallah.
Can one person start a nonprofit?
Yes.
One person?
Yeah. Yeah, you can start. The state now, at least in Michigan, I think, has it where they prefer to have more than one person on the board, though.
That's just preference?
No, the IRS might reject it. Not the state, sorry, the IRS, and even the state maybe even now. If it's only one person, then they may reject the tax exempt, and then the state might also come back, and we've had that happen.
Husband and wife?
Yeah, husband and wife is fine. IRS usually wants 3 board members.
But for nonprofit, it should not be family members.
It can. Yeah, it can. It can be family members, especially if you've got a family foundation that somebody's doing. But yeah, so we can.
C is similar to S. The same structure C and S they have.
Yes. Yep. C corp and an S corp. Yes. Okay. So this is about corporations, right? Now, how does that differ with an LLC? So firstly, in an LLC, corporations, you're shareholders. LLC, you're called members. Okay? So you're members. You're not a shareholder. It's just terminology of that. Aside from that, there is no requirement. There's no requirement of a board. There's no requirement of meetings. There's no requirement of bylaws. That's it. You can just have that. Just go file an LLC and start your company. Okay? There's no annual state requirements. I mean, you have your annual registration with the state of $25, but that's it. So the formalities are not there, which is why LLCs have become far more popular and far more common, right? Corporations now are really very specific based, depending on the specific type of company you're looking to create. Tech startups is big because usually they're with investors. Investors are old school. They still want corporations. That's where they want Delaware. They want to see stock certificates. Nobody does stock certificates anymore. You know, it's all just online or whatever. So that structure is more, it's not a one size fits all. It's what's best for your scenario. And that's where it should look at. For the most part, this is really the way that is suggested, okay? If there's any particular reason, then we can, then you would look at the corporation side. Okay. Now, I mentioned a few times, right? You set up your entity, and by default, you're given protection. Okay. The problem that people fall into is they don't know how to maintain that protection. How do I keep it? Okay. And this thing here is usually the biggest reason. People blur the lines and they merge the two worlds. Okay, so firstly, one of the ways you want to always make sure that you are keeping yourself protected and maintaining the default protection you're given is by never commingling funds. Okay? What happens very often is it's my bank account, I'm the only owner, I'm gonna go take a family trip, let me go use my business account and just pay for the family trip, pay for my kids' gas, pay for my family's groceries, pay for my mortgage. It's all coming out of the business account. When you do that, you are not treating your business as a business, right? Because you're a shareholder. If you're looking at the corporation side or the LLC side, you're a member or you're a shareholder of the business. If you own shares of Apple, are you going to go ask Tim Cook to, hey, can I have access to your Apple account? No, it's an extreme example, but it's the exact same concept. Exact same concept. Just because you're the 100% owner here does not mean you have the right to then start taking your money out. And if you do take it out and treat it like your regular personal bank account, then don't cry when somebody sues you personally and says you never treated your company as one. So that's why I'm suing you too. Because you merged your worlds together. But now when you're being sued, you're going to say, no, you can't sue me. I've got a company. No, but you don't have a company. It's really a sole proprietorship that you've been running. Now you're hiding behind the company. So the legal term is, Ibrahim, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you know what the legal term is? Exactly. So piercing, I asked Ibrahim, he's in third year of law school, mashallah. Sorry, I told everybody your secret. Last year, inshallah. So piercing the corporate veil. Okay, this is what is the objective for every attorney that's going after any business. I'm going to sue you regardless if you have a business. You prove to me now that I shouldn't sue you. And if you're showing me that you're running this as a regular bank account for your personal finances, then it's all fair game. So that's the number one big reason that people find themselves in trouble, okay, when it comes to that.
What are the top three things that kind of shows that they were using it for personal?
I mean, so that's the question. Like the question is like, oh, usually like, oh, how would they find out? I mean, when you are sued and your books are all open, right? So it's just you get the records. You'll look at all your bank accounts. You'll start questioning, this expense, that expense. If I see Meijer and Walmart and, you know, Kroger for, you know, weekly expenses, then, you know, you get questioned on that. If I'm seeing trips to Florida, so it just becomes a questioning through what, you know, through the lawsuit itself.
I had a quick question. Sorry, I was in the bathroom. I must have missed it. When investors are being brought in, specifically for tech startups, do people typically you know, I forget the technical phrase, but change from an LLC to a corporation because as a corporation you can issue as many shares as you want, or what's the logic? Does
Yeah.
that happen, or can startups still maintain an LLC, or do investors?
No, you could maintain an LLC, but usually for startups and tech startups, you're kind of dictated by the investors and the type of investors. If you're going for like the venture capitals, angel investors and stuff like that, you're going to play their game. And their game is going to be go in Delaware, get a corporation, be a C Corp, and then you do that. So if you start as an LLC and then you go become, if the question, can I become a corporation? Yeah, you can. You can always convert from one to the other. And you can come, you know, revert as well. So you could do that.
You're probably going to touch on this, but is there a way out if you make the mistake of piercing the veil?
Or like if I make it once or twice and then come back from it?
No, I'm saying like you already had that problem, like you mixed the two.
I mean, it depends. If you're doing, I mean, let's say all you guys are doing it right now, and then you're like, you hear this talk and you're like, oh, maybe I should change things.
Yeah.
And 6 years from now you get sued, then I would say the pattern's different. The pattern's not the same. Then it may not be as strong of an argument at that time, right? So, but yeah, if people are changing, so I mean, look, those are all. That's why the answers for attorneys is always it depends, right? So it would depend. Like I would say 6, 7 years later, that's not the same pattern. You change. It's not how you do things now and separate. Then I think you've got a stronger argument to defend.
Would it be wise to create a new company and then start over?
Depending on risk, that's also a depend answer. Everything is what's your risk tolerance, right? That's what a protection's all about. It's about how much tolerance do you have of risk. I know people that think that the past dictates the future. I've never been sued before, so I can never be sued again in the future. But if people have that mentality, then you're good. So I think it varies in terms of your industry and the extent of what you've done. Okay, the other thing, how you sign documents. When you're signing something on behalf of your company, you want to make sure that you've got your title on how are you signing it, right? Are you, when you sign, all right, am I president? Am I a member? What title of the company do you have to show you're signing on behalf of the company, not individually, right? If you just sign personally, there's no title or anything, argument can be made that you signed in your personal capacity. So you always want to make sure that when you're signing any documents that you've got some type of title under that. All right, third, and there's probably more, I'm kind of just going over a few of these. In small businesses and your companies, you want to maintain sufficient capital in your business. Look, the whole thing is trying to show that I'm running an actual company, right? So you don't run a company by, hey, we made $10,000 this month and I've got $7,000 in the bank account. Let's just flush it all out. I'm going to take it for myself, and then we'll just let the next month come through and get revenue and just do the cycle. Can you do that? Yeah, it's not illegal to do it. It's your company. Actually, let me back up for a second. So when I talk about the commingling, the question that usually comes up sometimes is, okay, well, how do I use my money? Just write a check. You write a check from you to your company, and that's what's called a distribution, right? So it's like in the LLC world, it's called distributions. In the corporate world, it's called dividends, right? So if anyone owns stock, you guys see dividends that you get from the corporations, right? So that's your dividends. In LLC, it's called distributions, right? So, or you pay yourself a salary, right? But you want to go to Disneyland, write a check to yourself for $10,000 from your business account to your personal account, goes into your personal account. Then from there, you do what you got to do.
Does Zelle work?
Yeah, it just has to be documented. So you can do that. So it just needs to be documented for that, right? Okay. So sufficient capital. How does that connect, right? So you want to make sure that if my ongoing expenses, and again, this is all about treatment. How do you treat the company, right? If my ongoing monthly expenses are 20 grand a month, you should try to at least maintain 20,000 in your account. Treat it like a business. Don't flush it all out. Again, can you do it? Yes, you can. But these are arguments that can be used against you, if it ever needs to be, that who runs a company like that, right? You're just flushing out your bank balance every month, and really it's just going to your personal account and you just use it for your personal expenses. So it's about how can you defend that and not have this happen where the veil is pierced. Okay? That makes sense? Any questions on that?
Can you be your mortgage from your business account?
Can you give a mortgage, like a loan to your business? Yeah, yeah.
No, for your house.
Oh, use your business account to pay for the mortgage? No, you shouldn't be doing that directly from your business account. That should go.
To your personal account.
Yeah, that should go to your personal. Now, what another thing, just to sometimes I want to just throw in real life examples of what happens or scenarios or things. What happens is people do all this, then they find out they're getting sued, then they'll come and ask, hey, I need to protect my assets. What can I do? And they'll be like, can I transfer it to my spouse? Can I do that? At that point, it's past, right? So really at that point, it's fraud, because now you know there's a potential creditor coming to you, and with that potential creditor, you are now trying to hide the assets, and that's fraud, right? So it's too late in the game at that point. So sucks having to tell people that at that time, because that's not what they want to hear, but that's really the only option you have, and is try to fight it. Okay, so we.
The license to put everything in your wife's name before you start the company? Like, what is
What? Oh, like in that scenario, or
yeah,
or?
You don't want it to be in the fraud scenario. What else do you do? What advice?
I mean, at that point, you can't. You just have to defend your case. I mean, you can't protect your assets at that point.
Do what Hakeem did. I mean, what you do before is the whole point.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
Don't make the three mistakes of commingling, and there's multiple, but don't make those mistakes. You won't fall into that issue. So it's not about putting in your wife's name. It's about having.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
That cannot be important.
Yeah, I mean, people ask that, can I put in my wife's name or should I put in there, and or my husband's name and all. I mean, if you're starting it out that way, sure, and sometimes people do that. But what I just mentioned, that's more at the end where it's too late in the game now to do anything. Like, you've already made these mistakes, and now somebody's suing you, and now you're worried that they can come after everything. So that's what you're trying to protect.
Question is, if we understand it right. So you had 100K, you put in 10,000 in the business, right? Now the business, after a couple of years, made 200,000, and you commingled everything. You get sued, right? Is that the 200,000 that will be the no?
Not just 200,000.
Everything.
Yeah, you're talking about all this bucket
Even your,
here.
like house you have.
That's the whole point, right? Because in small businesses, we as attorneys know that you don't have everything in your company. We know you might have stuff of your own, your investments. Now, there are things that are already protected, right? Your 401k is a completely protected asset. Nobody can touch it. IRA is a completely protected asset. Nobody can touch it, okay? So if I sue you for $2 million and you've got 2.5 in your 401k, I cannot touch it until you retire and start taking distributions. And then I can only touch the amount that you are withdrawing. I can't touch what's in there, okay? The other thing is protected. So when we talk about, all right, asset protection, right? I'm just getting off a little tangent here, but your biggest assets for most people is this, and what would be the third, you think? The house, right? Now, here in Michigan, there's a way to protect that as well between husband and wife. Sorry?
Is it that state?
No, it's a way. So in Michigan, there's ways to title property. Okay, not to bore everyone to death, but what it's called is tenants by the entireties. Okay, what this means pretty much, it only is for married couples, and under the eyes of the law, each person owns 100% of the asset. So only joint creditors can come after it. So if you have a business and you get sued and your wife has nothing to do with it, and you have a house that is titled this way, okay, I cannot touch the home because your wife had nothing to do with the issue I have with you. So that's a protected asset. Now, if you guys both do something, then yes, then it's fair game, right? But usually when we talk about these things, it's not usually like that, right? So your house, 401ks and IRAs are usually just protected assets anyway.
What was that called that you just mentioned? Titled what?
Tenants by the entirety. So
Possible follow-up question there is when forming a company, is there benefits to both, like the husband and the wife being members, other than?
no, I mean, is there a benefit? I don't think there's a benefit.
Which is could become a problem if you get sued. Let's say the house is not protected anymore if you're both
No.
part of the.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you look at it that way, then yeah. Then yeah.
Is it only a kind of dick move? Is tenant by?
It's so you have this in the deed, the deed for your property when you have it. So when everyone has a deed for when they own their home, regardless if there's a mortgage. So the mortgage and the deed are not, they're completely unrelated. So, but these are ways that your main assets are protected. Okay, let's move on.
In the LLC,
Yeah.
you mentioned S and C corp. So
Yeah.
This confused me.
Yeah, so I'll go over that next. So, okay. When it comes to, how do I, if I want to erase?
You need to.
Oh, this?
Yep.
There it is. Okay. Oh. Okay. So, when it comes to a little bit on the taxes, right? Now, I'm going to repeat again, I'm not the accountant, but to kind of give you some concept of it. When it comes to taxes, you can file as a sole proprietor, you can file as a partnership, you can file what's called a C Corp, and you can file what's called an S Corp. Okay. When you're a corporation, you're picking you're either going to be a C corporation or you're an S corporation, right? So the difference in a C Corp is that you have what's called double taxation. Okay, what that means is that you're taxed. You have corporate, you pay the corporate income tax, and then when you pay yourself, income or your dividends that you pay. All right, so these are the two taxes that you pay. Okay. In an S corporation, it's what's called a flow-through entity, meaning that whatever you earn goes directly to your personal taxes. So you're only taxed at the personal level. Okay? Now, that's just on the tax side of the difference. What are the other legal differences between the two?
I'm sorry, go ahead, Martin. Wants double taxation, not single taxation.
Tech companies, major corporations, investors. And I'll tell you, there's also other reasons. So the other reasons are that when you, and I know I'm getting detailed and all, and we can, kind of cut me off whenever you want if it's getting too much. But first off, in an S corporation, the maximum number of shareholders you can have is 100. Okay, you can't have more than 100 shareholders. Every shareholder has to be a U.S. individual. So if you have somebody overseas that wants to invest in your company, it cannot be an S corporation. So those are other reasons for that, right? The other is it can only be one class of stock, and I'll tell you what that means. Okay? You can only have one class. A class means when you have companies or corporations, you can create different types of stock. There's common stock and there's preferred stock. Okay? The difference is that when you issue dividends, people who are under preferred automatically get their dividend regardless. Common stockholders don't. I don't want to get too into all of that, but the point is that in a C corporation, you can have two classes. In an S corp, you can have one. Now, how does this relate to LLCs and then going back to the tax? I said there's 4 ways you can be taxed, right? Sole proprietor, partnership, S corp, or C corp. LLCs are considered disregarded entities. Okay, the IRS doesn't have the concept of an LLC for tax purposes. So when you form an LLC, you can pick how do I want to be taxed. So that goes to that, right? If you want to be taxed as an S corp, you file what's called a 2553 form, which is the IRS form. If you don't file anything, your default is if you're the only member, then you're taxed sole proprietor. If you have a partner, you're taxed as a partner by default, right? Otherwise, you elect to be taxed as the others. And then if you elect that, that's when you, I would say, talk to the accountant, you get into your strategies and all of that. But that kind of gives you the thought of, now, just keep in mind, when you do an LLC, right, your legal formation is always an LLC. How you're taxed is different. Okay, so if you are an LLC but you're taxed as an S corp, and people ask you what kind of company or what kind of formation do you have, don't say I'm a corporation. No, you're still an LLC. Right? You're just taxed under that way. So people get confused on that, and accountants get that for some reason get that confused as well. Okay. All right.
Is it when you file your EIN number?
No, you can do it. I think you have within 1 year after you've created, you have the option to file, to elect which way you want to be. Okay, next.
So for LLCs versus corporations, for LLCs you only have to file one annual report. For corporations you have to file quarterly.
Are you talking about the 990s and all? Your annual court? Yeah. So corporations, you would have those are for taxes. So even if you're electing as an S corp, you would still have the quarterly reports that you would file.
For LLCs, you don't need quarterly reports.
If you're not structured if you're not electing to be a C or an S corp.
Okay, so but like if you're an LLC but you're filing taxes as an S corp, you still have to do
Then you would.
reports?
Yeah, then you would.
Could you repeat this one, please?
Those are just tax forms. Every quarter, the corporations are required to file quarterly reports. I think it's 994, 990s, right? So that's just something you file quarterly as a corporation. So that's on the tax side.
So 4 times a year?
4 times, yeah. Okay, let's go into the formation part, and I'm going to zip through the first bullet point, which is the articles, and when you structure, because in Michigan it's very easy to create a company, and I'll always say you don't have to pay. I mean, sometimes you don't. People who want me to form it for them, I'm like, don't waste your money. You don't need me to form it. If you know your name, you know your business name, you know your address, you don't need an attorney to do it for you. So that's really all it is. The other thought, just to know, and people always get this confused, in Michigan, nothing online tells you who owns a company. It doesn't tell you who the owner of a company is. This resident agent that we talked about, right? A resident agent's role, their only job is that if you ever get sued, I'm accepting service for you. Okay, that's it. They're not an owner of it. They're not, they don't have any position in the company. It could be anybody, right? Usually it's yourself, but if people don't want to, sometimes they don't want their name in there, they'll hire a company to do it. But the resident agent, all they do is make sure that when you have to file your annual statements or you are being served, then they will accept service. You mind closing? So that's it. So now in Michigan, again, like I said, there's nothing online that says who the owner of a company is. Last year, federal government tried to intervene, and they sorry.
Just a quick question. So like usually like for LLCs, if you skip trace them, you get to know their owner's name and their address and their numbers, right? Phone number.
Not because it's online.
It's just
So there's only two places you'll ever find the owners of a company. In like I say in Michigan, other states you have to have the owners. Some states you have to have owners. In Michigan, it's when you file your taxes, and when you have an operating agreement or a shareholder agreement. That's it. There's no public record of, unless you post it somewhere, and you're putting it on social media.
In Laura, actually, there's
No.
in Laura, there is no.
None.
What about the articles of declaration? Are they not public?
Articles of declaration?
Yeah.
That's
Corporation.
no. No, it's public, but it doesn't ask you for names of shareholders. Not in Michigan.
Why they didn't ask about the owner, which is important for the.
So last year, the federal government, or the FTC they pushed a rule out that required every company to name the owners of the company. And there was like significant penalties and fines. Texas, obviously, that's the state where they fight all these things, and it got overruled. So they had like a deadline where because there was a lot of, shell companies and fake companies and companies from overseas. And
That's the part I'm waiting for, because from Dubai you see a lot of Virgin Islands.
yeah, there are. And I think for many, there's reasons on why the government may want it. There's probably reasons why, they also want it just for privacy, but that got overturned. So again, we're back to the status quo, which is in Michigan. Some states, again, might be different, but in Michigan, nothing online on Laura will tell you who the owner of a company is. Now, oftentimes, if you're the resident agent, people just will assume you're also the owner, okay? But that doesn't mean that's the case. So if that's why sometimes people hire a company to be the resident agent. So just be mindful of that, right? Okay. Articles of incorporation is when you're filing a corporation. Articles of organization is when you're filing an LLC. That's it, all right? All right, let's talk about the operating agreement. And
Before you go to
yeah.
sorry about this. So you said in Laura there is no like owner when you file the LLC, but when you open when you get the IRS EIN, do they ask you about the owner?
No. No, they don't ask you the names of the owners. They'll ask you how many owners there are. They don't ask you the names. So, yeah, so no to that too.
I think you just picked up.
Oh, okay. I did it. Okay, well, we'll keep going. I don't need that right now. Okay, so I don't think they can hear us, right?
Yeah, I think you should be able to.
Let me just stop sharing.
I'm still sharing.
That's the whiteboard. Okay. Okay. Operating agreements. Let's kind of get into this a little bit. Bylaws and operating agreements. Bylaws are for corporations. Operating agreements are for LLCs. Okay. Now, the purpose of them. Now, when you're a single member, like if you have an LLC and you're the only member and there's nobody else, again, like I said, LLCs, there's no requirement. You don't have to have one. Okay. So a lot of times with single member LLCs, whether you do it or you don't, doesn't really make a difference. If you want to formalize it, sure, you can have one. The banks may require it, right? When you go to the bank, they're going to want to see your articles. They're going to want to see the EIN. Sometimes they may, depending on who you go to, they'll ask you for the operating agreement of the company. Sometimes if you don't have it, they'll just give you one. So if you are in a partnership though, that's where I say you really should stress and put some attention into your operating agreement. Like any contract, there's only 2 times you guys will ever look at it. When are they?
When the first time you make it and when you're getting sued.
Did I tell you that?
No.
Oh, okay, yeah. The only times you'll ever care about a contract is when you're getting it done or when you have a problem. In between that time, you don't care. It's whatever. It could be anything, right? If it says something, you do something else, doesn't matter, life's great. When it comes to partners, and I can tell you for doing this for 17 years, I don't care what relationship you have. Literally today, two brothers, 19 years working together, are now not on speaking terms because of the business. I've had father and son. I've had mother and son. I've had siblings. I've had best friends for 30 years. And then they'll end up getting into a huge fight. You know, one right now, they were in the police force together for like 15 years. Started a security business and kicked the guy out, and now we've been in a lawsuit. Just removed him from the company, forced him out. So it doesn't matter who you are, what your relationship is. I will always say, have an agreement between you and your partners, always. And when we ever work on them, we talk a lot about what happens when you actually will fight. So we talk about the end of your business, not always the beginning, right? Because everyone's just talking about the beginning. Everyone's just talking about, you know, this is going to be great, or, you know, because it's the honeymoon phase. Life's great, we're going to make a bunch of money. But once money starts to come in, then you're going to start questioning, how much work is he doing? How come I'm doing all this work? He doesn't do enough. You know, I put this much money into the business. They didn't put enough into it. Things start to fester. Then you start looking at your contract. What does the contract say? And then you're like, why didn't I put this in the contract? Then I get blamed. Why didn't you add this? And I'll say, I did tell you to add it, but you didn't want to add it because you just wanted to get done with it. That's when all the problems come up. So dealing with all of that is always important in the beginning, to just make sure you have. So the operating agreement is that document that will help. Look, at the end of the day, you're always gonna, if you have problems, it's there to help either end, right? Because if you are trying to solve the problem when you are both mad at each other, no one's thinking straight. But when you guys are both happy in the beginning and life is great, we're gonna be amazing together, then it's like, yeah, I'm okay with that. Yeah, you're okay with it. Yeah, that's fine. Let's just, yeah. And then that's what you're bound to. The operating agreement becomes your binding, it's a contract between the members, right? So what does it have? It talks about the purpose of your company. What is it that your company's about? It talks about the internal policies of your business, right? When it comes to voting, how are votes gonna happen? Is it based off of equity percentage? So if I own 70, you own 30, then I can always outvote you, or we equally share one vote each, right? What is common in scenarios is you've got partners that are coming together. One's putting in the money, the other one's putting in the labor and has the idea and the brains behind it, right? Both sides think they're more valuable than the other, right? But they don't realize they both need each other. The guy with the brains or the girl with the brains needs the money. The guy or the girl with the money needs to put their money somewhere, and they both need each other in some capacity. So they're both valuable, but they both have their own concerns. That if the business fails, I lose $100,000, whereas you just lost your time, right? So that's why they think one's more valuable than the other. Like, what did you lose? But in those scenarios as well, how do things work? Oftentimes when you come up with an idea or a business, people want control. Mark Zuckerberg to this day still has control over Facebook, over Meta or whatever it's called now, right? He still maintains control over the decision. So that is, and those are things that are discussed in advance. Those are when you're bringing in the partners. I'm always about just be transparent now, right? Talk about it now, figure it out now, because if you guys are going to argue about it today, oh, that's it? Oh, wow, okay. I thought it was till 9:30 or 9:45. Oh, I didn't know. I mean, I can stop and just.
You can complete.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I thought that's what I was going till then.
Because we want to have 10 minutes for like Q&A too.
Oh, okay, cool. Sorry. So yeah, so on the agreement side, right? So you want how you structure it, those conversations you have, you want to have them in the beginning. There's no reason to just, hey, let's just put it off and see what happens. Because if you can't agree on it when you're in your honeymoon phase, then it's probably a sign that there could be problems later.
Simple question about that is like, how do you structure, like, what is like a, baseline, like, okay, uh, like subcategories into those operating agreements, what should be the basis of, regardless of who's contributing and what type of contribution it is. Let's say, someone's contributing money, someone's contributing money and labor in that case, or any just
Yeah.
general standard scenario where you hit these particular things so that you can be covered regardless in the time when you're at go this business.
Sorry,
I understand the question.
yeah, I'm trying to understand the question.
So let's say if someone's bringing up, they're bringing in labor as well as investment. The other's just bringing in investment.
So how the equity should be distributed?
How the equity should be distributed.
Right.
How does the yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of like number 4, define the ownership percentages, right? I mean, look, there's no formula, right? That's kind of where there's just a conversation and understanding that if you're contributing X amount and I'm putting in the labor and the work behind it and you're just putting in the money, there's ways to structure things where we've done it where, okay, you know what, yeah, you're putting in the money, but maybe our agreement will say that before I take any profit, I pay you your money back. Okay, so then it's you get that first, right? That could be one way that you do it. You have that conversation. If I'm also putting in money and I'm doing all the work, then it makes sense that I also get a little bit of a higher percentage. It should be more of a passive income for the investor then, right? So why would I give up 50%? So this is the other thing, right? When it comes to partnerships, people are very quick to just pull the trigger of like, yeah, let me just bring that person in, let me give up equity, and like not realizing that when you're bringing in a partner, if it's a business that you've started, it's different, a little bit different when you guys are coming into the idea together. But if I've started the business and now I'm like, all right, let me go find somebody to come in with me and work with me and all that, there should be more than just, there's enough people to give you money. But it's what's the added value that this person is going to bring in addition to the capital. And if they want to give me money, then that's fine, but you'll get maybe no voting. I just want your money. I don't need your input. Right? You believe in me, you believe in the product or the service, just give me your money and you'll get your whatever your returns that we agreed to. Right? And then you've got non-voting equity is what that would be called. Okay? So yeah, I mean there's ways to structure things based off of that and the scenarios that you've got to protect one side and then also to protect the other side, right? So if the person is coming in and giving the money, then it's just that, hey, I want my money back first before we start issuing distributions, or you pay me a percentage of your profits first before you take a whole, full percentage. So there's things that you can do that way.
Can the partner say like, okay, for your effort, I will only give you percentage of like 20% of profit, not ownership in the company, but only.
Yeah. So then it's a profit sharing agreement. Then you're only issuing profits out, not equity. Which look, for most businesses, that's always my first approach. Can this be done without giving up equity? Because when you give up equity and a problem happens, it's not easy to just take the equity back. No one's just going to be like, all right, here, go take it back. No, then you got to buy his equity or her equity back out, right? And then what's in your contract to decide how that's going to happen, right? So that's where issues can arise.
You start off as like a sole proprietorship or LLC, and then like later on, if you want to add partners, can you convert it to like a corporation or S corp, something like that?
Yeah. I mean, you'll always start as an LLC. I mean, in the beginning, that's what I mentioned. You always want to start as an LLC or at the very least, and then if you need to convert it to a corp, you can always convert it to a corp after. If you start as a single member LLC, you can always add a member later as well. Okay, so just I don't know how much time we actually now have, but I want to. Actually, let's just open it up a little bit. I don't mind. Let's do that. I can go through some of these, but I just want to make sure I touch on any specific questions that people might have.
Yeah, like in regards to intellectual property, I know we can get
Yeah.
the whole piece of paper. I know there's going to be a lecture on the 29th with somebody who's worked at the
Yeah. Actually, I know him. Really good guy. Very knowledgeable.
operating is a different name. Logos and slogans that I'm kind of reading off here. If you have a name that is so common, from my understanding, my limited knowledge, you have this rule where if a name is so common, you can trademark it. You can't trademark it. Let's say like Ali, like such, or let's say John Smith. It's such a common name, you can't trademark it necessarily, correct?
Yeah.
So on that note, operating as that business name, it doesn't matter. You can just use it. It doesn't matter if another company has a similar name.
Yeah, I know. And I just want to make sure everyone understands trademark. We're talking about trademarks here, okay? Trademarking is where you're trying to protect a brand. If you have a name, you don't want anybody else to file it. Now, if you file it in a certain state, nobody in that state can use the name. So if you file as something here, nobody in the state can copy the name. But somebody in Illinois can, somebody in California can, because you're not filed there. That's where trademarks come in, right? So it's protecting your name, it's protecting a slogan, it's protecting your brand. And you're making sure that when you file or you're protecting, that nobody can do the same thing or similar thing as I'm doing by using my name, okay? So that's just, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Now, to your question, Ibrahim, now, yeah, I mean, if you are using, I mean, you actually used a person's name and you wouldn't trademark that, but like,
let's say I'll just transparent. Name of my company is Donna, referring to Donna from Suits, the TV show. Obviously, there's an issue there if you use her image and likeness.
Yeah.
But the name Donna is so common. It wouldn't matter, right?
I know the episodes you're talking about.
Yeah. So the name Donna is so common. You know, if you look up Donna, there's Donna.
No. Okay, so I got you.
Donna this, Donna.
Yeah. So no, you still can, because it potentially because no. So what happens is when you file a trademark, when you register for that filing, you are letting the office, USPTO office, you got to tell them exactly what your company does. Okay? Exactly. There's different classes that you're filing for. For example, to simplify it, a lot of these coffee shops that we rep, we're filing their trademarks and whatnot, and you've got, let's just take a coffee shop, right? Yamini Coffee Shop. It just sells coffee or cafe or tea services, right? If I am filing one for example, let's just say Shabam, that's over here, right? Shabam's filing a trademark that nobody else is allowed to use the word Shabam. Now, when you file it, you're filing it as a cafe or a tea restaurant kind of a thing. Meaning nobody else can open up a cafe or a tea spot that is called Shabam. But if you want to open up a mechanic store and call it Shabam, you're allowed to do that. If you want to open up, I don't know, a clothing store and call it Shabam, you're allowed to do that. You just can't open up a coffee shop and call it Shabam. So similarly, Ibrahim, with yours, depending on what class you're protecting, Donna could be a restaurant, could be this, could be that, whatever it is. I don't know if it's an acronym or not. They may come back, like for example, we've done it where we're trying to file, whatever, name coffee. They'll come back and say, look, we'll give you the trademark of the name, but you can't trademark coffee because everybody uses it. Your case might be a little different, I'm saying. Tech, and it depends on what you're classified as, right? What is it? Your company does a certain thing. So you're making sure nobody else can use Donna for this type of business.
Now, on that note, if I'm incorporated, so my incorporated, it's just public info, right? It's on the website. It's like Donna IO because Donna AI was taken. So mine's Donna IO LLC, right? And I want to operate as Donna. Do I need to submit something? Do I need to? Okay. So
An assumed name.
What was it?
Assumed name.
Assumed name.
Well, here it's called an assumed name. It might be called DBA, doing business as.
Doing business as,
yeah.
And then when it comes to trademarks, does it matter that my formation name is different? Does it matter whether I have a DBA or not? Does the USPTO take
When
that
you
into consideration?
file your trademark, you want to file it as Donna, not Donna IO.
Yeah, because that's what
Yeah, that's your company name.
I think this is basic. These are not basic questions, right?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So I have a question for when you say no public record, know the owner of the company. So how when you go to the bank, how do they know about the
Operating agreement.
if you don't have operating agreement?
The banks will probably tell you to have one, or they'll give you one.
A single.
Yeah, yeah. Or you can just tell them it's you. I mean, that depends on each bank.
Can you make amendments to it though?
Yeah, yeah.
Anytime.
Always.
Okay, cool.
Always.
The EIN document has your name on it as the owner.
Not an
That's what the
owner.
bank needs, right?
Yeah. EIN document doesn't say you're the owner.
Oh, just say who filed it.
Exactly.
Okay, okay.
Going back to what we were just talking about the trademark and everything. By that logic, could I start towing company called Google?
Yeah. Technically, you could. Now, Google might still come out. I mean, depending if your logo is very similar to their wording or things like that, it may. Now, the whole thing with trademark is it going to cause customer confusion? Are people going to come to your company thinking Google is behind it? If it does, even if you don't do anything, then that's a problem.
Okay.
So it's all about customer confusion. That is the standard. Is it going to cause confusion to people and the consumers to think like Nike? Can I open up a restaurant called Nike? Sure, but if people think Nike is behind it, that's a problem.
So who decides if it'll cause
The USPTO office would.
And then Nike can challenge
Yeah,
it.
Nike can always challenge it. I mean, obviously, you might not have the swoosh, but you might have half a swoosh or whatever the style. That's just
What shall I do if I need to close the LLC company?
close. You file dissolution paperwork. So articles of dissolution.
The company does not make any money. So it is
Yeah, or if you don't file your annual. So the other thing is, if you don't ever annual, you have to file $25 annually to the state. If you don't do that for 3 straight years, then it automatically dissolves.
What about the tax?
You want to obviously file your taxes.
Even you don't make any money.
I mean, you might have losses that you might want to report. So sorry, sister, you had a question.
I don't understand how thinkers that release Creative Commons license can make money from that. Since we're on the topic of intellectual property and trademarks. I see a lot of Creative Commons that's useful to me.
Yeah, that might be a question for the patent attorney next week. So just in that sense, so IP has got 3 brackets. There's copyrights, there's trademarks, and there's patents. Yeah, so copyrights and patents, and he also does trademarks. Ahmed, I know, but he'd be more equipped to probably handle that specific question like that. Sorry, yeah, trademark stuff I can help you with, but those are more specialized. Patents, even you can't be a patent attorney unless you have an engineering degree, so very specialized. If you have another question, happy to.
I think they get federal grants. That's how they make money. And I think federal grants is more like the state property.
It could be, yeah. I won't be familiar with it. Yeah.
So you do trademarks as well?
Trademarks we do, yes. Yeah.
Can you trademark a service?
I mean, what do you would trademark a brand, like a name or your logo. You trademark that. Are you trying to protect somebody so that nobody can do what you're doing?
A service or an idea.
Oh, that would be more in the patent side.
Okay, which is next week.
Yeah.
So if I were to start an LLC and right now I don't really have a plan on like that. So like if I generally my case like I started an LLC saying it's a service providing service.
Okay.
But I have multiple ideas, right? I might direct them into like a rental business. I might direct them into a real estate business. I might direct them into something depending on which one fly
Yeah.
and which one will fly. Maybe I might use an LLC or make another LLC within that. But like I think you mentioned about classes. So what classes do you actually start with? Like I did.
The classes will be for trademarking.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's for trademarking.
But for like opening an LLC, you still have to like categorize it into like.
No,
right?
not when you register. Yeah, you don't need to put in the articles what your purpose is. It's just generic that says anything legal, pretty much, is what you would put. Sorry, I just want to any. All right, go ahead.
For the operating agreement, what are the standard practices of articles that you have? You have equity splits, you have capital investments, you have maybe voting rights, dispute resolution. Um, do you have any more?
Yeah.
I mean, they keep on going, but
Yeah, there's more. You know, that would be dependent on more specific. Like, I mean, indemnification. Now we can discuss what all that is. There's buy sell, like, you know, valuations. There's many different, you know, sub clauses you can have on the generic topics that you kind of mentioned, right? So that just comes down to how detailed does somebody want to go. You know, when people have gone through issues, then they want to make sure that the next time they learn from the mistake and they don't go through it, right? Like, for example, you know, the case I was kind of mentioning, right, where I had a client where he brought in these partners and he found out that they were stealing from him. Now, like I said, once you bring in a partner, they're partners now. Okay, well, now he's stealing from you. Well, I don't want him as a partner anymore. Okay, well, you're gonna have to buy him out. Well, he stole from me. Why do I have to buy him out? That's not fair, because you don't have a contract that says anything different, right? So because you do a general template, that's what you got. Now, some of the contracts that we drafted in those scenarios is if you can, you know, show that they've stolen from you, then if I buy you out, I'm not going to buy you 100%, I'll buy you at 10%. So whatever the value, so those are the differences that you would end up, you know, looking at. So it just becomes how detailed does somebody want to go into all of that. Buy sell, how do you determine valuation? Is it by third party appraisal? Is it accountant? Is it, you know, so there's different things on that. And then, you know, talking about buy sells, right? When you have a partner, what happens to your equity when you die? Or if you want out? Or if you get a divorce, right? Or if you're disabled, right? So, yeah, or personal bankruptcy, right? So what happens, and, you know, death, divorce, disability, and just retirement. Those are the four common ones. In those scenarios, what will happen to your equity, right? Especially divorce, where people are like, look, I don't want to deal with having your ex-spouse have to take equity in this company now, or death. I don't want to deal with your kids taking over your equity. Now I got to work with them. So how does that work? So those are other parts to it all too.
Feedback on the question that he had from your experience, where there are LLC people generate from LLC, but they don't have a concrete idea of what they would be doing. Would you advise them starting an LLC, or wait just from what they have?
No, because if you are starting an LLC, it's usually when you've got an idea of what you're going to do, right? So because your name is going to be based off of whatever the business idea is, right? So you're not just going to start and then figure out later. Because that's really what you're registering. So you have an idea, you have, all right, I like this idea, I have a name for it, now let's go register the business.
And especially when you're like pivoting towards another, especially with startups, like the thing where you start as one thing and
it becomes something else. And that's fine too. I mean, you can change a name. I mean, if you have yeah. So if you have a name that's tailored to that specific service, but now you're going to do something different, that's not a big deal. Just close the LLC and do a new one. We're good? Okay. All right. We're on.
Okay, we're at time, guys. Thank you for the questions.
Jazakallah khair, everyone.
If we have more questions for the tech talk and you want him to come back, we will have a part 2 section which has more in depth for any of these, IP or anything in general.